Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my Big 12 football predictions for the 2021 college football season. Before I continue, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please go to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do that. Really trying to grow the channel. We do have a subscriber goal of 500 subscribers, which I'll love to hit by the end of the year. So go ahead and hit that subscriber button. If you're new, you will not regret it. We already have our ACC and Big 10 football predictions out, and our preseason top 25 out. So go ahead, check those videos out. I'm going to try to get through every conference. We're doing the Big 12 here. I'm filming this Monday night, but you're going to get it Tuesday morning. I'm going to try to get the independents out Thursday morning, and then I'm hoping to get the SEC out this weekend. Hopefully the Pac-12 out at some point early next week. But Big 12. I guess the big storyline for the Big 12 is Texas and Oklahoma. Their days on the upper. They are moving to the SEC. I guess in 2025, it will not surprise me if they actually move to the SEC a bit sooner. But overall, I do think that the Big 12 is going. I think you do one or two things if you're the Big 12. You go out, you poach Memphis, Cincinnati, UCF, South Florida, um, and I guess Boise State, because I think West Virginia is going to leave the Big 12 no matter what. I think they'll try get into the ACC. I know the ACC, there's mixed reactions if they want them or not, but I think at the end they will end up in the ACC. West Virginia, but you try poaching those five schools. Maybe if West Virginia decides to stay in the Big 12, maybe you go out and get SMU to try to fill that hole in the state of Texas, with Texas leaving for the SEC. Or it's just going to crumble and collapse, and you're going to see all these teams go in different directions. I know Kansas already has a phone call set up with the they called the Big Ten up. I'm sure Iowa State's gonna call up the Big Ten. I'm assuming some of the Texas and Oklahoma States and Kansas States of the world they're probably gonna go to the Pac-12 or the American or Mountain West. I think West Virginia's going to the ACC, but I think that one of those two things are going to happen, but definitely a big blow for the Big 12. But this year, all 10 teams in the Big 12 are playing in it, at least this season. So let's get into it. The Big 12, it's basically Oklahoma and Iowa State and everybody else. Let's see if I agree with that. Last year, Oklahoma won the Big 12. In first place in the Big 12, remember, it's 1 through 10 in the Big 12, no divisions. You also have 1 and 2 face each other in the Big 12 championship game. But number one, I do have Oklahoma going undefeated this season. If you really want my opinion about Oklahoma, I look at their schedule. I think they beat everybody in the Big 12. I mean, the Iowa State game's at home. It'll be a very competitive game. It'll be a very close game. I actually think it will be, but I think Oklahoma finds a way to win that game. I mean, you go ahead, you look at their non-conference schedule at Tulane. Tulane's not a pushover, but Oklahoma's going to go in there and beat them by 30, 40 points. I think the spread's only like 26 right now. So I would definitely take Oklahoma minus 26. Western Carolina, they'll name the score in that. Then Nebraska. Um, Nebraska, in my opinion, they're fighting to get into a bowl game. The game's at home. It's great to have that rivalry back, but at the end, I do think that Oklahoma runs away with that one. But look at Oklahoma. Spencer Rattler, he comes back. This offense is going to be really good. They bring back 7 on offense. They bring back 8 on defense. This defense, I think, is going to be the best defense under Lincoln Riley, which I think is going to be huge as well. And I just think they're going to, I mean, you look at the schedule, maybe at Kansas State's the loss, or maybe the Iowa State game at home. I never rule out that Texas game because it is a rivalry. They gotta be, in my opinion, they gotta get that monkey off the back, being Kansas State. I mean, would you be surprised if I told you Chris Kleeman, which we'll speak about here soon? Would you be surprised? You will be stunned if I told you he is 2-0 against Oklahoma. Uh, since arriving at Kansas State. I mean, Chris Kleeman basically owns Oklahoma right now, so they gotta get that monkey off their back, and I think they will. As a matter of fact, I think they beat them convincingly up there in Manhattan, Kansas. But yeah, I think 12-0. I mean, I think I don't. I mean, I think the Texas game, no matter what's gonna be at least competitive. I think the Iowa State game's gonna be competitive, but outside of that, I mean, at Kansas State might be competitive. I do think TCU that could be a little bit competitive as well, but I think it's gonna be definitely easy for Oklahoma to get to cruise to 12-0. Second place, Iowa State. This is a preseason top 10 team. A lot of people are high on this team. I have them going 10-2, 7-2 in the conference. I do think they sweep the non-conference, including that Iowa game. I think Matt Campbell, he'll finally get that monkey off his back, not being Iowa yet. There at Iowa State, I think he gets that monkey off his back and beats them to get them at home. They should win that game. They bring back 11 offensive starters, which is crazy. They go, I mean, Brees Hall, possible Heisman finalist. I've heard that get floated around. Brock Purdy, he seems like he's been there forever. Um, but he's coming back, I think, for his final season. I believe this is his final season. I mean, you look at Matt Campbell, I think, is a top 10 head coach in the country, and I do think he'll eventually leave Iowa State for a bigger job. At some point, I just think it has to be the right fit for him. You look at Iowa State, the non-conference, as I said, Iowa at home. I think you finally get that monkey off your back. At UNLV, they're the worst team in the Mountain West. You'll beat them easily. And then Northern Iowa, a team that in 2019, I believe, 2019, they took you to overtime. That cannot happen this year. I don't think it will. I think you'll beat them pretty convincingly. But then you look at the Big 12 schedule. I do think you lose that game on the road to Oklahoma. I do think you drop another game elsewhere, and the game I think you're going to drop is actually that Kansas State game. I know you guys are coming off a bye. They're coming off a bye as well. It's on the road against Kansas State. It always seems like Kansas State, it always seems like they beat somebody that they're not supposed to beat. And I think instead of Oklahoma, it's going to be Iowa State this year for Kansas State. As I said, I like Chris Kleeman. I love what he's doing there at Kansas State. But overall, Iowa State, I think they're a top 10 team. We're talking about the Big 12 championship game. They will make the Big 12 championship game, in my opinion, but it'll be with 2 losses in the Big 12 instead of just 1 loss against Oklahoma. I do think they drop another one somewhere in the Big 12. Third place, Texas. I went back and forth with this one. I really did. I could have gone a number of different directions with this one. Some people are high on TCU. Kansas State, I think, is a team that you should definitely be considered for third place. Same thing with Oklahoma State. I think both of those should be considered. And then you have Texas. The way the schedule lines up in the Big 12 and the way I sorted it out, Texas comes out in third place in the Big 12. 7-5, 5-4 in the conference. 7-5, 5-4 in the conference. Non-conference schedule is tricky. Louisiana at home, at Arkansas, and then Rice at home. You'll beat Rice at home. But that Louisiana game and at Arkansas, I think no matter what, you split those for the purposes of my YouTube channel. I actually think guys are losing week 1 to Louisiana. Right, you have a history of losing games early in the season to our conference games. My Maryland Terps, but a lot of people have you guys pencil in to lose that Arkansas game. I actually think you win that Arkansas game. I mean, I'm not really that high on Arkansas. I think a lot of people are for some reason. I don't know why. But I think you guys actually win that Arkansas game. You bring in Steve Sarkisian, who came from the Nick Saban School of Coaching uh, after his prior stints with Washington and USC. You look at his work at Alabama. That offense was clicking last year, so he comes in. But I think it's going to be a bit underwhelming year 1. I mean, Tom Herman. Say what you want about him. I personally didn't think he was a championship head coach, which, by the way, at Texas, that's what they want. But he's definitely a pretty damn good head coach, and it would not surprise me if some of these jobs open up, he'll get a job offer after the season, and I think he will get a decent job offer after the season. But you look at Texas, in the conference schedule. I always said they're going 2-1 in the non-conference. Texas Tech at home. I think that's a win. That at TCU game, I think, is a loss. It's crazy to me that Gary Patterson up there at TCU has been Texas 7 out of the past 9 seasons. Up there at TCU, that's just unacceptable if you're Texas. To me, Texas is a top 3 job in the country, and they should be beating anybody really in the state of Texas, in my opinion. That Oklahoma game, I think is competitive, but I think you lose that game by 2 possessions, honestly. I think you get a big win against Oklahoma State after that Oklahoma game because I think you guys are going to be a bit desperate at that point at 3-3. Um, Coming off your bye week at Baylor will be a win. I think at Iowa State's a loss. You're beat the Kansas schools at home, and then you're lose on the road to West Virginia in kind of a sneaky late game there. Um, but overall, I do think Texas they finish in third place because of how the schedule lines up. But I think they only go 5-4 in the conference, 7-5 overall record. Fourth place, Kansas State. Now, don't be fooled. I know Kansas State has a better record than Texas, but Texas actually has the tiebreaker because I do think in the final game of the season, which I do think is going to be for third place in the Big 12, I do think Texas wins that game at home. Some people are kind of low in Kansas State. I do not know why. I do think that Kansas State is a team, in my opinion, that is pretty good. I really think it's pretty good. Kansas State. You bring in Skylar Thompson. He's back for another season. He's a pretty good quarterback there. Um, you go ahead. The running back position is pretty good with Deuce Vaughn. Overall, this offense is going to be pretty good. They bring back 10 on offense. They only bring back 6 on defense. I'm not too concerned about that personally. Um, Chris Kleiman, I think, is a type of coach that knows what he's doing. So I'm not too concerned about that. You look at you look at their season last year. It was kind of a weird season. They go out and lose to Arkansas State, which turned out not to be that good of a team in the Sun Belt. But then they go on the road and beat Oklahoma, and they pull off 4 straight in the Big 12 before losing to West Virginia in blowout fashion. They lost a tight game to Oklahoma State at home. They lost a blow. They got shut out actually by Iowa State on the road, and then they lost a close game on the road to Baylor, and then they got blown out by Texas in the final game. Um, you look at them coming into this season; they're very experienced offensively. As I said, I'm a big Chris Kleiman fan. You look at the non-conference schedule: Stanford, Southern Illinois, and Nevada. That Stanford game is in Arlington. It's the I think they call it the Texas kickoff. That game, I think it's honestly a pick 'em. I actually think you're a 1 point dog in that game. As you can see, if you look at the record, I do think you beat Stanford to open up the season. You beat Southern Illinois. That Nevada game is going to be tricky because they bring in a quarterback that is going to be in the NFL and Carson Strong. But at the end of the day, I do think you guys will find a way to win that game at home. But then you look at the Big 12 schedule. As I said, I think you lose to Oklahoma. I also think you lose on the road to Oklahoma State, so you lose to the Oklahoma schools. Your other losses will include, in my opinion, Texas Tech, Texas. And it would be your other 2 losses. So Texas Tech and Texas, I think you lose to, and then the Oklahoma schools. But you beat everybody else in the Big 12. I'm pretty high on this Kansas State team. I don't know why their numbers only at 5.5 for over under. I think that's an easy over right there. And I have Kansas State finishing in 4th place, 8-4, 5-4 in the conference. In 5th place, I have Texas Tech. Now, you can make it now not so much make fun of me because I do think there might be some teams that are behind Texas Tech that might look better on the field. But the more I look at this team, the more I actually like this team. They bring in the transfer from Oregon, Tyler Shog, I believe is how you pronounce that last name. I do not know why the hell he left Oregon. The job was his. But he comes into a Texas Tech team with a coach on Matt Wells, which I do think is on the hot seat. I mean, there were talks about it last year, him getting fired after a 4-6 season. They never, I mean, all 4 of their wins were very close wins. I mean, Houston Baptist, they only beat by 2. That's pretty embarrassing, not going to lie. They did beat West Virginia when they were slight dogs in that game. and they did beat Baylor in a pick'em, which I think kind of saves his job. But they barely survived against a Kansas team, which let's be honest, Kansas is nowhere close to Big 12 competition. They barely came out for a win in that one. You look at their non-conference schedule. Houston and Houston, I believe that's the Houston kickoff, I believe is what they call it. SF Austin, and then FIU at home. You'll beat SF Austin and FIU at home. Houston, that Houston game, I actually think you lose that game. It's going to be kind of a home game for Houston because it's in the game is in Houston, even though it's technically a neutral site game. I do think you guys will lose that game, but you look at you go ahead and look at the Big 12 schedule. The way the schedule lines up for y'all, I mean, you beat TCU at home, in my opinion. You go on the road and beat Kansas. You beat Kansas State at home, and then you'll go ahead and beat Oklahoma State late in the season. And the way the schedule lines up with how I have the schedule lining up, I mean, there's 4 teams that I have 4 and 5. Texas Tech has the best record between all those teams facing each other, so that's why they're in 5th place in my opinion. They'll go 6-6, 4-5 in the conference, get in the bowl game. I think Matt Wells saves his job this year. 6th place, TCU. I know they have a better record than Texas Tech overall, but the head-to-head, I actually have Texas Tech beating TCU. I have TCU going 4-5 in the Big 12, 7-5 overall. I look at TCU. A lot of people are high on them this year. I do think they might. I do think they're going to be better than what they look, despite only going 4-5 in the Big 12, 7-5 overall. You look at the non-conference schedule. All 3 home games against Duquesne, I believe is how you pronounce it. You're beat down there at FCS school, and then you get Cal and SMU at home. Man, your bye is early, September 18th. That's an early bye. But I think you beat both Cal and SMU in the non-conference, especially at home. Even though I think they'll both be very close games. But you look at the Big 12 schedule. I think you kick off Big 12 play with a big win at home against Texas. But then after that, I mean, at Texas Tech and at Oklahoma, I think you lose both of those. I think you beat West Virginia at home. At Kansas State, I think it's a loss. I think you find a way to beat Baylor at home. You'll beat Kansas at home, and then you will lose on the road against Oklahoma State and Iowa State, in my opinion. But Max Duggan, uh, Max Duggan, he comes back. He had a health condition last year, so because he has to sit out because of COVID. So I'm glad to see him come back. Zachary Evans, that's a 5-star running back. I do think he could be a workhorse for them. But overall, and I do believe in Gary Patterson, I really do. But the way the schedule lines up this year and especially in the Big 12, I do think it could spell a bit for them being for TCU maybe being a bit underwhelming than what some people think. I mean, there's some people predicting TCU go 9-3. I just don't see that. So, but I do think they sweep the non-conference. I think they go 4-5 in the Big 12, 7-5, 4-5 in the Big 12. Okay, 7th place in the Big 12, West Virginia. Um, West Virginia, in my opinion, they lose a lot. I think this is going to be kind of a transition year for them. I look at them this season. I do like their head coach Neil Brown. It hates me. I'm a Maryland fan. It hates for me to say that. Speaking about Maryland, I do think they lose that game week 1 in their non-conference game. They played Long Island week 2 FCS opponent. They'll beat them. I do think they beat Virginia Tech week 3 in the non-conference as well. They have 2 Power 5 non-conference games. I think they split those. But you go ahead, you look at the conference schedule. I think they go 4-5 in the conference schedule. They'll go ahead. They'll beat Texas Tech. They'll beat Oklahoma State, and they'll beat Texas. And where's the 4? Oh yeah, at Kansas. They'll win their final game at Kansas. Even though bringing back 9 offensively, 8 defensively, I just feel like this team is. I mean, all the star players. I mean, maybe Jared Doji. Maybe he's kind of the only one. Maybe a Letty Brown. They do bring them back on offense, but outside of that, I mean, they lose a top defensive player. I just look at West Virginia. I just think it's going to be a bit of a transition year. I do think they're going to be better than what their record looks. I think that's going to be the case for a lot of these Big 12 teams. But the way the schedule kind of lines up a little bit, I mean, you have two Power 5 games in the out of the conference. I think you split those. You call me by saying you're going to lose the Maryland one, but to be honest, I don't know which game's the bigger game, the Maryland game or the Virginia Tech game, because I know they're both rivals of y'all. But I know which one will be the biggest of Pitts on that schedule. I know that's number one, but I don't know which. I mean, tell me down below if you're a West Virginia fan watching this. Which game to you means more, the Maryland game or the Virginia Tech game? I honestly do not know, but yeah, I look at the conference schedule 4 and 5. I just think it's a bit of a transition year for West Virginia. Eighth place, Oklahoma State. Um, Oklahoma State. I know they're usually penciled to go 8-4 every year. I think they take a step backwards this year. I mean, yeah, they bring back Spencer Sanders. They do lose Chuba Hubbard at running back. You look at the non-conference schedule. That at Boise State game, I think you guys lose. You will beat Missouri State and Tulsa at home, but I do think you lose that at Boise State game. And then you look at the go ahead. You look at the Big 12 conference schedule. I think 4 and 5. I mean, I think you kick it off with going 2-0 in the Big 12 in the conference schedule, the Big 12 conference schedule. But after that, I mean, at Texas, at Iowa State, you'll beat Kansas at home. At West Virginia, I think is a loss. TCU at home, I think you find a way to win that game. And then at Texas Tech, I think is a loss. And then Oklahoma, I think that's a loss at home. I mean, I would choose to pick Oklahoma State, beat Oklahoma anyways. But I mean, you look at Mike Gundy, very good head coach. I'm gonna make a gut. I have a gut feeling though. I think he's gone after this season. I kind of do. I mean, I think. And I'm not saying this because of the whole situation like a year ago with I'll call it the shirt incident. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. But overall, I don't know if I mean they only bring back 5 offensively, 8 on defense. They notoriously do not play defense at that school. I don't care what you say. They are known not to really give a crap about defense at that school. So for me, them bringing back 8, it doesn't really mean anything to me. But only bring back 5 offensively. Yes, you bring back the quarterback, but overall, I do think that I don't know. I just think it. I just don't know. I mean, there's always a team every year in each conference that kind of underwhelms. And I think this year was Oklahoma State. That's my gut feeling. And the more I look at them, and the more I look at everything, I actually think Mike Gundy's gone after this year. I think Oklahoma State, as I said, it's not because of the shirt incident. I actually think it's because they wanted to try to get over this hump. I mean, hell, I know that they're not facing Oklahoma anymore probably after 2024. Um, but I mean, maybe as a non-conference game. But even then, if they face them as a non-conference game, I mean, Mike Gundy's what 3-14 against Oklahoma. I mean, they need to. I think they're gonna sit there and they're gonna think about making a change because they want to try to be more competitive with Oklahoma in the state. So, and no matter what, Oklahoma's gonna be number one in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, there's no way in hell Oklahoma State is gonna be number one in that state. But I mean, I thought 2020 was a bit underwhelming for them. I mean, you look at some teams, any team. I mean, after 2017, I mean, 7-6, 8-5. Probably Gundy's second best team in 2020. He only went 8-3. So I don't know. I know I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I think he's going after this season. He was not on my college football coaches on the hot seat because I personally don't think he's on the hot seat. But I think as the season goes on, I think he's gone. I really do. I really do. I'll make the bold prediction. I think he's gone after this season. Ninth place in the Big 12. Baylor. I look at Baylor. I think they'll be better than what they were last year, especially on offense. They cannot be any worse than what they were on offense last year. They were god awful offensively. Uh, I mean, you look at them, the non-conference schedule at Texas Tech, Texas Southern, and what's their third non-conference game? BYU. I actually think they lose to BYU. They're at home. I actually do. I don't know why I had that mark, but I guess I just think maybe they lose that game. I know BYU they're losing a lot, but I just think BYU finds a way to win that game. They'll beat Texas State and Texas Southern. Look at the conference schedule. They'll get on the road and beat Kansas, in my opinion. The other two wins, though, I think they beat West Virginia. I think they beat Texas Tech at the end of the season. Um, this offense cannot be any worse than what it was last year. I mean, good lord, this offense was not good at all. I mean, they only averaged 24 points last year. They cannot be in the Big 12 in a very offensive heavy league. They cannot be any worse. Dave Aranda, I do think. Excuse me. I do think Dave Aranda. Um, I think they have a better year this year. They went 2-7 last year. I think they go 5-7 this year. I think there was improvement. I know your only two wins were against the Kansas schools this past season. You somehow found a way to win that Kansas State game at home. Kansas you blew out, but I think everybody's blowing out Kansas this year in the Big 12. But I just think Baylor's gonna be better this year. I don't think you guys make a bowl game because I wasn't gonna predict 9 teams to make a bowl game in the Big 12. So I think you guys are the second worst team in the Big 12 technically, but I think you guys will look better than what your record looks. I don't think Baylor's gonna look bad. I just think one of these teams are not gonna make a bowl game that's in front of you, and in my opinion, I think it's gonna be Baylor. And then in last place, Kansas, of course, 1-11, 0-9 in the Big 12. I guess they win that South Dakota game. I mean, they bring in Lance Leapoid. I do like that hire because the whole Les Miles situation. My 2 cents about it is it didn't really affect Kansas. Kansas, I think, kind of just made that move because, I mean, Les Miles was there for 2 years and just wasn't really going to work out. I mean, yeah, in 2019 they did go into Boston College to blow them out. That was probably like the one highlight. They did blow out Rutgers as well, um, and they did find a way to beat TCU and Texas Tech in the Big 12. So they did find ways to do that, but the 2020 it was just terrible. They were, I mean, really outside of that Texas Tech game, they were really not anywhere close near anybody. They get Coastal Carolina in the non-conference on the road and Duke on the road. Coastal Carolina is gonna blow them out down there in Myrtle Beach. Duke's probably, I mean, Cutcliffe knows how to coach. That guy's gonna blow. I mean, they're gonna blow them out by 3-4 touchdowns. They're going to be nowhere close to anybody in the Big 12. They beat South Dakota. I'll say they'll get that win against South Dakota. So I don't predict. So it doesn't look completely embarrassing. But Lance Leaport, I think he's the right hire. I think he'll come in and at least change the culture. Maybe get them to a few bowl games. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I don't think it's gonna be a good year for Kansas. I just don't. The over/under was at 1 at one point, so I mean, and I don't see more than one win on the schedule. I really don't. So, uh, Kansas 1-11, 0-9 in the conference. So your Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma versus Iowa State down there in Dallas. Um, very very competitive game, but at the end. I just think Oklahoma is the best team in the Big 12, and I don't even think it's very that close. I mean, Iowa State, yes, I do think they're a top 10 team. I do think they're going to be very close games against Oklahoma both times. It would not surprise me if Iowa State actually sweeps Oklahoma, honestly, or splits with them. I was kind of leaning towards maybe a split, but I just couldn't bring myself not to pick anybody besides Oklahoma to win the Big 12 and with the game in the regular season being in Oklahoma, I gave it to Oklahoma because of the home field advantage. Um, but overall, I think Oklahoma does win the Big 12, 13-0. I do think they make the playoffs. More on that in the next week or two, or who I have making the playoffs. I at least want to get the SEC, Pac-12, the Independents, and the American done there, because I do think there is a team in the American and two teams in the American that I do think if they go undefeated, I do think they should get into the playoffs possibly. At least one in Cincinnati, but overall, um, that these are my Big 12 football predictions. Oklahoma wins the Big 12. Iowa State, they come close being Oklahoma 2 times, but they just come up a bit short in both of them. And then I think basically 3 through 9, I basically think it's a free fall. Who's that going to be? The way the schedule lines up and everything, that's the order I came with. I think Kansas is at the bottom. I do think Kansas. I'll make a prediction right now. Kansas will not be within 2 touchdowns of anybody in the Big 12 this year. So, and we'll see. Um, if you want to hold me to that, you can. But that's basically my Big 12 football predictions. So thanks for watching the video. Hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to your channel. Very appreciate you do that. Gonna try to get the Independence out this Thursday. Hopefully that'll be out for you. Thanks for watching the video. McD the Beast signing off.